Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. This is the unsolved disappearance of Mary Jane Carter from Greenville, Tennessee. Mary Jane Carter was also nicknamed Billy. She was born in Greenville, Tennessee on April the 22nd, 1935. Billy was just 22 when she left Greenville around 1957. It says June of 1957. She left Greenville with a plan to go to Chicago to find employment. She was with a lady named Nellie Inscore, who would later be known as Nellie Locke. She was also with a man named Leslie Frank Duke Kirk and a man named Arville Franklin Rudley. The four of them headed together to Chicago. The other three returned to Greenville, Tennessee without Billy. They all said that they didn't know where she was, that once they got to Chicago, she left and went out on her own. The three of them, not being able to find work, returned to Tennessee. Nellie would later say that Billy may have gotten married, that she had met a man there named Sammy Hill, and that he worked at a hospital, and she believed that this was St. Mary's Hospital. This marriage was never confirmed, and they were never able to identify Sam Hill. Maybe that's where the term, what in the Sam Hill? We've all heard that, what in the Sam Hill? But they were never able to confirm a wedding. Well, I would think a marriage, I would think that you would be able to look for records. I'm sure they kept marriage records. Bessie Saul, now this was her mother, reported Billy missing in Greenville, Tennessee, and in Chicago. She and one other of her daughters made a trip up to Chicago in hopes of finding Billy. Now, they went to Chicago, and I guess they went to that hospital, and they probably went to other hospitals, asking if anyone knew a man working there named Sammy Hill. They went to the part of Chicago in the neighborhood where the other three had told them that they had left Billy. Now, Nellie later returned to Chicago to live with a man that she had met there named Lloyd Locke. They got married and had 3 children together. They later moved to Joliet, Illinois. It is believed that Lloyd, this man, knew Sam Hill, but this was also never confirmed because he would never speak to Billy's family. They made numerous attempts to contact him. They even tried to seek him out through his children and the police, but their efforts were unsuccessful. They were never able to confirm any friendship between him and anyone named Sam or Sammy Hill, and they were never able to acknowledge if he even had ever met Billy. At the time of her disappearance, Billy was a mother of 3 children. Her son, Bruce Lucas, passed away in 1972. Her daughter, Norma Jean, passed away in 1958. And her other daughter, Dolly, lived until 2023. Both Norma and Dolly were severely mentally disabled, and Dolly spent most of her life in a home for people with mental disabilities. Mary Jane Carter may use the last name Sauls, S-A-U-L-S. She may go by Billy, or any variation of her actual name or nickname. She was described, now this was when she went missing, at the age of 22. She was 5'6", 140 pounds, with reddish hair and blue-green eyes. She had a Y-shaped scar on her chin and a scar from a dog bite on the right side of her face. She also had an appendectomy scar, and her hands may also have been slightly deformed. She walked bow-legged, and this was very noticeable. She chewed her fingernails quite a lot, so she would have had very broken, bitten fingernails. And she smoked, and she was known to wear a man's ring. Now, it doesn't say if it was a wedding ring or what, but it just says she was known to wear a man's ring. Now, Mary Jane or Billy was known to have had very limited education. She had never worked outside of her home. She had very poor social skills, as she had never really been out in the public a lot. I don't know how it is that she came to know these other people. I don't know how it is that if they were friends, if they knew each other prior, or if she'd met them very quickly and then took off with them. There's nothing to say there how she knew these people, but it just says she had very limited social skills and had never worked anywhere. Since the years have passed, everyone she had went to Chicago with has since died. Her kids have all died, her mother died, and many who tried to help with her case over the years have also passed away. Most of her family has passed away, and she only has one sister still living and a nephew who is still continuing to search and would like to know what became of her. I know we have many here who love to search, dig, and explore. I know we have people who enjoy looking for people in these unsolved cases. So I would really like for someone out there, maybe who does these genealogy searches, to really take the time to search for Mary Jane Carter, or Billy Carter, she may have gone by, or Billy Souls, S-O-U-L-S or S-A-U-L-S. I looked her up, but as I was looking her up, strangely, I came upon another woman with the same name who had been murdered, and I'm going to read about her. This is Stories of the Unsolved. And this woman's name was Mary Carter, but she died in Ohio. Mary Carter was just 17 years old when she married the man who would later become her ex-husband. Their marriage bore 2 children, a daughter named Elizabeth and a son named Sean. Now, they were both living with Mary when she and her husband split up 4 years after they married. Her divorce was still in the middle of being processed when she moved to North Avondale, Ohio, a neighborhood north of Cincinnati. She was living in a basement apartment in Hyde Park, which is an affluent area in the city's east side. On August 16, 1980, Mary was taking her children to spend the day with their grandmother. At around 11:30 a.m., a witness recalled seeing the 3 get into a pickup truck near Vista Avenue and Madison Road. It was believed to be a 1976 or 77 model blue Ford, midnight blue, a dark blue. People that knew Murray said she wasn't the type of person to accept a ride from a stranger, especially if she had her 2 children with her. So it's assumed that she did know the person. It was a hot day, and people just assumed that the heat and the 2 tired children maybe caused her to accept a ride from someone, but a lot of people believe she knew this person. At 1:45 p.m., Faye Eastep, a resident of Cincinnati's East Side, found the two children wandering along the sidewalk in front of her house. The younger girl was crying while the older boy was attempting to comfort her. She took the two children to the nearby fire station and told the firefighters there that she didn't know these children, but that it was hot outside and that the children looked to be tired and crying, and she just left them there with the firefighters. When the firefighters questioned the children, they said that their mother had fallen asleep in the grass. The firefighters alerted the local police, who informed them that they had found the body of a young woman nearby. Murray was found lying face down in a ditch running along the rear of a wooded lot on the 1000 block of Eastern Avenue. Now, this was an area that was known for prostitution. While initially believed to have been left half naked, deputies soon realized that she was fully clothed. She was wearing blue jogging shorts, and these had been hiked up, likely while her body was being pushed into the ditch. Her shoes were missing, indicating that they'd been taken by her killer. Well, I don't know. She could have been running. She might have had these children, whoever this person was in this truck. Or maybe he set her out and set her and the children out. I don't think anyone believed that Murray was out there doing prostitution with her two children with her. So I don't think that that's what police were thinking. Of course, we don't know. An autopsy found that Murray had been strangled to death. There were no signs of sexual assault, and her body gave no indication of bruising. They don't believe she'd been beaten. They believe that whoever did this had just simply strangled her to death and threw her in this ditch. Elizabeth had blood on her when she was found, and investigators took her and the little boy to a nearby hospital. The doctors determined that she had probably just fallen on the ground on the sidewalk and had kind of scraped up her knees and hands. The little boy had no injuries. The children had not been violated or anything like that. I think whoever this person was had simply put them all out of his truck, or they had asked to be let out, and he strangled the woman, threw her in this ditch. I don't know if the children witnessed this. They must have, because they said their mother fell asleep in the grass. So they must have seen something more. Just under a week after Murray's murder, investigators released a sketch of an individual believed to be her killer. Based on information from witnesses, he was described as a neatly groomed white male of average height and build, with kind of an olive complexion. He was believed to be between the ages of 25 and 35, with blonde, possibly graying hair, and a darker mustache. He had dark eyes, high cheekbones, and hairy, muscular arms. He was believed to be wearing a white button-down t-shirt or a white shirt with short sleeves, white pants, and brown shoes. Investigators were also able to gather more details about the truck, as the witness that had shared the information said that it appeared to have a black steering wheel and a light blue inside, along with an aluminum rear bumper, a single rear window, and a chrome box. Over 100 trucks matching the description were looked for, but Murray's killer was never found. Local authorities warned the public about the possibility that he had gotten rid of the vehicle or changed its appearance. They asked local garages to keep an eye out for anyone who came in wanting to have a truck like this altered. Investigators learned that Murray had spoken briefly with a bus driver on the day she was murdered. The interaction occurred at the intersection of Madison and Erie roads. According to the driver, she had asked if the bus was heading to her desired location, but it wasn't. He informed her that of the bus that she needed to catch and where to go to catch it at. He didn't see what direction she walked away in, but he assumed that she was headed toward that bus stop. As a result of the interview, investigators surmised that Murray had likely accepted a ride from an unknown truck driver shortly after her interaction with the bus driver. Sean did note that he had never seen the man who had driven the pickup truck that had given them a ride. He said that the man had dropped them off near Eastern Avenue. So did he strangle this woman while the children were in the truck? Because it says the little boy told police that the man had dropped them off near Eastern Avenue and his mother was laying in the grass. When they realized they couldn't wake her up, they went to look for help. Now, the children's father, Murray's ex-husband, was investigated, and the records show that he was 300 miles away in the Great Smoky Mountains at the time of the murder. Aside from a few short articles in the newspapers, Murray's murder didn't get a lot of media attention. Numerous tips have been called in over the years, but none have helped solve this case. One such lead included an individual who had purchased a washer and dryer from the young mother after she had moved. So she'd moved to this new apartment. I guess she didn't need the washer dryer or didn't have room for it. Unfortunately, investigators were never able to uncover this person's identity. Did they think maybe this person was the killer? 21-year-old Murray Carter and her two children were waiting for a bus at the intersection of Madison Road and Erie Road in Cincinnati around 11:30 a.m. on August 16, 1980. When the bus arrived, the driver told her that this bus wasn't going to her location that she was wanting to go to. The bus driver told her that she needed to go toward Vista Avenue, and he gave her directions and told her which bus she needed to take. Murray and her 4-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter then headed toward Vista Avenue when a man in a blue pickup truck stopped and offered them a ride. About 2 hours later, at around 1:45 p.m., a woman who lived in Cincinnati's east side saw these two very young children crying and looking lost, walking down the sidewalk in front of her house. She went out and she asked them who they were, and they told her that they couldn't wake their mother up, that she was sleeping in the grass. The woman took the children to the nearby fire station, and now it says here that a group of children who were walking along the sidewalk came upon Murray's body, and the firefighters called the police, and the police said, yes, we are aware that a woman's body has been found. Now, could it be, it says, they go back to this thing about this was an area where Johns would pick up prostitutes, take them to that area, and did this man assume that Murray was a prostitute? And when he tried to proposition her, she became outraged and angry, and they got into an argument. She hadn't been sexually assaulted, according to police. So did this man honestly think that this woman with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old was out there prostituting? According to the autopsy, she had been strangled to death, probably with a ligature of some kind. The children did tell the police that they had been picked up by a man that they had never met before. They didn't know this man, but that he had offered them a ride. And then the man let them all out near Eastern Avenue. Now, I find it kind of hard to believe that a 4-year-old, the 2-year-old, of course, isn't able to articulate, what color the truck was or what, whether they knew this man or not. So the 4-year-old is probably who they're relying on. And they put out a composite of the man and a photo of a similar looking pickup truck. Police investigated over 100 cases, but they were never able to find the man. Now, the father of these children, it was said, was in the Smoky Mountains at the time that this took place. They were still in the process of getting a divorce, even though the police called him her ex-husband. And they said that he couldn't have done it because he was so far away at the time. Now, on the evening before this, we get back to this washer and dryer. On the night before this, Murray had sold a washer and dryer from her old house since she was in the process of moving to a new house. And police wanted to determine whether or not this man that bought this washer and dryer may have been the man who picked her up. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe he was coming back to her house to attack her or something. Maybe he saw her walking and offered her a ride. And since she had remembered him from buying this washer and dryer from her the night before, she thought, okay, he's safe enough. But they were never able to determine who bought the washer and dryer. Murray's killer has never been identified. I wonder how much, if at all, the police investigated the husband, and I wonder if it was possible. This is just me being a, sleuth thinking about this. They said that she was taking the children to visit the children's grandmother, but was it her mother or his? And could it be that they kind of had an idea that maybe somebody needed to have the children that evening? Could this have been a setup? Could the man that had come to buy the washer and dryer the night before have come there thinking that this was what he was going to do and found the children to be there, and maybe he came back the next day not expecting to see her walking down the street, saw her and took his chance at that moment? I don't know. It's just speculation, but I just wonder, the husband just happened to be out of town at the time. Someone comes, the ex-husband, the soon-to-be ex-husband, and someone just happens to come and buy this washer and dryer that night, and the next morning she's dead. I personally think it was probably the same man, and was this a setup? I wonder if the police ever looked at that angle. Before I move on into the next part of this story, I would just like to remind everybody, if you haven't already, to please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, in this original, the very first part of this video, the story that I was working on, Murray Carter, who had gone missing after leaving Tennessee to go to Chicago, it said that a story about her was featured on Unsolved Mysteries. I went and looked that up, but I couldn't find it. But it did lead me to another story about another woman named Murray Carter. A third woman named Murray Carter. And this one kind of had a little bit of a happier ending. Not completely happy ending, but better than most of these cases turn out. And I think maybe possibly they got the two cases confused because there was an episode about this Murray Carter on Unsolved Mysteries back in the early 90s. But now the case goes like this. Murray Carter had a twin sister named Martha. Now, the two girls were given up as infants when their mother died shortly after their birth. Now, this was in Tennessee in 1924. Their father found himself alone with these two newborn babies, and he already had 7 or 8 other children that he was trying to care for alone. And when his wife died, leaving these two baby infant girls, he just couldn't take care of them. And he just gave the two little girls up for adoption. Now, around 3 months passed, and both the little girls were adopted by separate families. She come to find that she had a twin sister, and the little girl's name had been Martha. Now, their original name had been Hinkle, and the Hinkle family began to search for these girls. They knew about them, but after the dad died, the older siblings, decided to seek them out and try to find them. And they were able to find Murray pretty easily, but Martha was a different story. What had happened to Martha was she had been adopted by a family in Johnson City, Tennessee. But after about 3 years, this couple divorced. And for whatever reason, the little girl went back to adoption and was sent to live with another family in Georgia. Now, at the time of this article that I'm reading from, Martha had still not been found. But the Hinkle family had begun searching for them, and they found Murray. The family hopes that if Martha is found, these painful memories will be put to rest. In 1924, the Hinkle family lived in Greenville, Tennessee, a small rural community 60 miles northeast of Knoxville. This was only a few years before the Great Depression, but it had already arrived in their neighborhood, as their father was a tobacco farmer, and he was just barely getting by. Now, he was a tenant farmer, and his name was Rufus Hinkle. On May the 22nd, 1924, his wife, Julie, died. They had been married for 22 years, and she died shortly after she gave birth to these little twin girls. Now, he had 9 other children to care for. He felt like that he was incapable of making ends meet, and he just could not care for 2 little girl twins. Now, it's said that several weeks after he took the 2 little girls to this adoption agency, he changed his mind and he went back to the orphanage to see if he could find the girls. But sadly, he was told that it was too late and they had already been adopted to 2 separate families. The orphanage tried to place them together, but they just couldn't find anybody willing to take 2 baby infants together. Sadly, he never saw his daughters again, and the older children said it was too painful for him to talk about, so they waited until after his death, and then they decided that they would search for the girls. Now, he passed away in 1950, and this is when the older siblings decided to try to find the girls. In 1955, one of the brothers contacted the orphanage, and though they were unable to locate Martha, they were able to trace Murray. She had been adopted by a family named Saunders, and she was living in Bluefield, West Virginia. They went there to meet her. So they drove to her house, and they said they recognized her as soon as they saw her. He said that he knew her as his sister as soon as he laid eyes on her. I guess she had a family resemblance. Murray said she was happy knowing that her siblings were all together and that they had been searching for her. And she learned for the first time after meeting them that she had a twin. She had never known about this. Probably the family that adopted her probably didn't know about that. Shorty, now this is one of the brothers, told Murray that the orphanage had lost track of Martha. They had not been able to trace her or the family that had originally adopted her. And the Hinkle family had been unable to find her. But in 1986, 30 years after Murray was found, one of the granddaughters, named Jackie, this would have been Mary and Martha's niece, started searching for Martha again. And she uncovered the original orphanage records, and she learned that Martha had been adopted to a family named Charles and Lida Meeks of Johnson City, Tennessee. It's about 30 miles away from her original home. Jackie centered her search around Johnson City, and she went through old record books, census records, directories, and things of that sort. And she was able to track down the Meeks family where they were supposed to have lived. But she couldn't find any trace of them. So she didn't know what happened to them. Not much is known about them other than the fact that the father was a 34-year-old farmer. But in 1990, 3 generations of the Hinkle family got together for a family reunion, but only one person was missing. Now, at this point, like I said, at this point, as I'm reading this, they had still not found Martha. And this is the episode of Unsolved Mysteries that was mentioned in the original story about Murray Carter. It wasn't the Murray Carter who had gone missing from Greenville, Tennessee to Chicago. This was the Murray Carter whose family had been searching for her. Now, shortly after Unsolved Mysteries aired this episode in 1991, they got some information. Shortly after this episode aired in May of 1991, the Hinkle family were contacted by a woman named Sandy DeTine from California. She told them that she had been searching for her mother's biological family and that she believed her mother may be the missing sister. She accidentally discovered the location of her mother's adopted family, and she said that Martha had lived with Charles and Lida Meeks for 3 years. She found records from the Mormon church that showed that Charles had been treated at the local Veterans Center in Johnson City, Tennessee. She was able to track them down, and she found them in a town in Georgia. Now, Martha had gone to live with a family in Georgia after Charles and Lida divorced. Now, Martha initially went to live with Charles, but was later adopted by a friend of his named Dan Jackson and his wife. And so, since 1940, she had been living in Georgia. Martha then married a man named James Thomas, and she went on to have 4 sons. They later settled in Savannah, Georgia, where she worked in a nursing home. She was known by her family as a loving, giving, and caring person. And sadly, she passed away April 19th, 1991. So basically, she passed away within a month of this episode airing on Unsolved Mysteries, trying to connect her to her family. And her daughter contacted the Hinkle family very soon after this episode. So they missed finding their long-lost sister and their long-lost aunt after only weeks before they found her. She had passed away. But even though they were unable to contact Martha and reconnect with her, they were able to put the 2 families all back into contact with each other. And on July the 27th, 1991, Martha's 4 sons came to meet Mary and the Hinkle family. They had a bittersweet reunion, and they all say that they were just glad to all finally know each other, and that they'd all found each other, even though Martha was not a part of that reunion. She was a part of the reunion in their hearts and in their minds. Now, on December the 9th, 2007, Murray Carter passed away at the age of 83. So, the father regretted having given the girls up for adoption. He went to look for them. At that time, in 1924, there were very few resources for that type of thing, and he didn't have the money to put into trying to locate them. And maybe he felt in his heart that maybe he had done the right thing, even though it bothered him. And these two girls grew up separately from each other, but not really all that far apart in distance. And never knew, neither one of them ever knew that they had a twin. And even though they were not able to be reconnected in life, um, sadly, Martha missed this reunion by a mere few weeks. I don't know what her health condition was at the time, but her family all got together and they got to meet their long lost sister and cousin and aunt named Murray Carter, and they were happy to have that reunion. So that was just a little story that I thought that I would include because, like I said, when I'm doing research on these cases, sometimes you do find cases of people with the same name. And even though this was a sad story for these families, they did have a happy ending. Thanks for watching.